Welcome back, Twisters, and hey there, hockey fans. Nick here, and today I'm going to talk about the best low-key moves for each NHL team in the Eastern Conference here in this 2021 offseason. So we'll look at free agency and trades and that sort of thing, and also like the best under-the-radar move for each of these 16 teams. And of course, I want to know your thoughts on this in the comments below. So if you have a favorite team here, let me know the best low-key move. I already made a video for this on the Western Conference, so make sure, if you haven't already, do check that one out. And of course, if you're new here, I encourage you to hit the red subscribe button down below and join the Twist Brigade because we are so close to 2,000 subscribers. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the way I'm going to do this, I'll look at the Metropolitan Division and then we'll go to the Atlantic. So let's start in the Metro alphabetically with the Carolina Hurricanes. And here I have selected defenseman Ian Cole. Now, Ian Cole, of course, is a grizzled veteran out there at 32 years old. He's played for over a decade for a number of teams. He's coming in on a one-year, $2.9 million contract. And one reason why I really selected Ian Cole here is because the Hurricanes already lost Dougie Hamilton and Jake Bean. We'll talk about him a little later. And Cole is just a reliable defenseman there in a depth role. So I would say that on a third pairing, he could flourish for sure. So let's take a look at his past season here. We'll just look at the Minnesota Wild because he only played 2 with the Colorado Avalanche. So with Minnesota, 52 games played, had a plus 21 rating, 92 blocked shots, had an on-ice save of 924. So in other words, when he's on the ice, goaltenders save 92.4% of shots. He's a stay-at-home defenseman. And yeah, his ice time has been going down for the most part over the last few years, but he's getting more favorable matchups because of that. He can also play on the second penalty kill if need be, but the Hurricanes are already one of the better teams in the NHL when it comes to that, except when they're facing Tampa in the playoffs. Next up, we've got the Columbus Blue Jackets, and here I've selected former Hurricane Jake Bean. So Bean coming in on a 3-year deal worth $2.33 million annually. I think this is going to end up being a steal because Bean, despite only playing 44 games in the NHL, he hasn't really gotten a fair shot. And that's because, of course, the Hurricanes have so much depth defensively. So he's yet to really come into his own. And I think Columbus is a good spot for him. You think of them losing Seth Jones in the offseason here. So Bean could potentially be a second pairing defenseman there. Of course, you got Zach Werenski at the top. 42 games with Carolina last year. So he had just a goal and 11 assists. -2 rating, 10 penalty minutes, so that's pretty low. 14 minutes, 32 seconds of average time on ice, so obviously he's playing bottom pairing. His analytics were fine as well, but he has so much offensive upside that I can't just go without saying here. So in the 2019-20 season in the AHL with the Charlotte Checkers, he had 10 goals and 38 assists in just 59 games. And the season prior, when the Checkers won the AHL Calder Cup, right, the championship there, he had 13 goals and 41 assists in 70 games. So this guy still has a promising future ahead of him. I believe Columbus is a good landing spot, and now he can take it out on Carolina a few games a year. For the New Jersey Devils, I have selected defenseman Jonas Siegenthaler. Now, of course, they landed another big defenseman in free agency in Dougie Hamilton and Ryan Graves, for that matter, too, with the trade. But Siegenthaler is a decent depth defenseman for them. He'll probably slide into that bottom pairing, I would think. He didn't play that much this past season, but you look at the 2019-20 season with the Washington Capitals, 15 minutes and 44 seconds of time on ice average, plus 11 rating. 32 giveaways, though, so he needs to cut down on that a little bit. But with Siegenthaler, I didn't really see anything glaring, any cause for concern other than those giveaways. So, at just $1.125 million annually for the next 2 years for a team that needed some defensive depth, I think that that's pretty good. He'll play a stay-at-home role while you have guys like Ty Smith out there and, of course, Dougie Hamilton putting the puck on the net. For the New York Islanders, there really haven't been many acquisitions for them. So I selected Andy Green because even though he's 38 years old, he's coming in at just a $750K deal. So very affordable for a guy who can play a bottom pairing role and help somebody like Noah Dobson develop further. This past season, 55 games played, was a +9, 1735 time on ice average, and 99 block shots. So nothing glamorous with Green, but nonetheless, as kind of a mentor, why not? Okay, for the New York Rangers, I've selected defenseman Ryan Lindgren. Now, this is somebody I don't really know too much about, and that's because, first of all, I'm in the Western United States, but second of all, he's the one who's kind of in Adam Fox's shadow. So he played alongside Fox and he had a great year. So his ice time was up this past season. It went up 3.5 minutes to about 20 minutes, and he was a plus 20 rating in 51 games. Good responsibility with the puck, just 25 turnovers. That's not bad at all. And his defensive analytics were actually pretty good too. A 920 on ice save is what I want to highlight in particular. And the best part about this is that he's staying with the franchise for 3 years at a $3 million annual cap hit. That's more than reasonable for a good, reliable partner for Norris Trophy winner Adam Fox. And then he'll be 26 after this deal is done, so then he can get paid for real. Now, for the Philadelphia Flyers, of course, they've landed a couple of big defensemen here in the offseason, including Rasmus Ristolainen and Ryan Ellis. But I wanted to highlight somebody else who's kind of falling under the radar, and that is Keith Yandle. The grizzled vet has been signed for just a $900K season, so very affordable. I know that defensively he's a liability, but I do like the prospect of him pairing with Justin Braun, who's a more stay-at-home defenseman and had a decent season for the Flyers, even though I know defense and goaltending was an issue. I think he did fine out there. So I think this could be a decent pairing in a third pairing role, I would have to say. Nonetheless, Keith Yandle had 27 points this past season in 56 games, but 17 of those were power play assists. So this guy can play on a second power play unit and help them out in that respect as well. Now on to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I have selected Teddy Blueger. So he was extended to a 2-year deal worth $2.2 million average annual value. And with the Penguins, you think about, of course, Crosby and Malkin. But after that, well, it depends. Are you going to have Jeff Carter as your third line center, or is he going to play in the top 6? He was very successful with them this past year. So other than that, they're pretty thin at center. And so I think it was really important they extend Blueger. As far as I know, the fan base seems to like him quite a bit, and just analytically, he certainly does support that. You also have to factor in that they lost McCann and Tanev, so somebody like Blueger with a good defensive skill set out there who's not in his mid-30s, he's only 26 years old. I think that's a really good addition. His face-offs have been improving year over year as well. In this past season, he also added 7 goals and 15 assists for 22 points in 43 games. In a depth role, that's really impressive. Also had a plus 10 rating. He was second among Penguins forwards in penalty kill time per game too. So for $2.2 million, I think that this is a fantastic deal. Okay, and for the Washington Capitals, I have no idea because they're kind of like the Islanders in this respect. Not too many acquisitions. I'm going to choose Matt Irwin though because he's just 1 year at $750K. I would assume that he would probably be the 7th defenseman out there, so he's not going to play all that much unless somebody gets injured, because Justin Schultz, he usually misses time every year. He played 24 games with the hapless Sabres this past season, 16 minutes and 15 seconds of time on ice, minus 10 rating. Again, it's Buffalo. Just 7 turnovers, though, so he's not coughing up the puck all that much. And then you also have to factor that the Capitals have lost Brendan Dillon, they lost Siegenthaler, and Chara is probably gone, I would think. I think he would retire or maybe go somewhere else, and Justin Schultz is injured. So having just a veteran back there who knows what he's doing for the most part, I think that should help them if need be. Now let's move to the Atlantic Division, and alphabetically we begin with the Boston Bruins, and they made a couple big splashes in the offseason, but I'll choose Eric Haula. So center Eric Haula on a 2-year deal, annually worth $2.375 million. He's great on draws. He's fantastic in the faceoff circle, so 54.5 average faceoff percentage the past 3 years. Offensively, he can add some depth scoring if in a third line role. When he was playing second line for Vegas in 2017-2018, he had 29 goals and 26 assists. So he's probably somebody who's going to get you in the neighborhood of about 35, 40 points in an 82-game season. I think this is good scoring depth fortification there for the Boston Bruins, and he can also kill some penalties as well. He led all Predators wingers in shorthanded time on ice this past season, so great guy to add to the depth there. For the Buffalo Sabres, I have chosen 27-year-old winger Vinny Hinostroza, so he's coming in on a $1.05 million deal for just 1 year. I've always liked Hinostroza since he was with Chicago. He's bounced around a couple of losing teams the past couple of seasons, so it doesn't really help his case to go to the Buffalo Sabres. But nonetheless, he could flourish in a third-line role. He had added 4 goals and 8 assists in just 17 games when he went back to the Chicago Blackhawks this past season. So I think maybe he found his mojo there a little bit. I also liked his defensive game as well. So overall, a good two-way depth forward third liner on a team like Buffalo. Not a bad deal, $1.05 million. For the Detroit Red Wings, and this is somebody I didn't know about until Nathan, Gravity or Gravite, pointed out on his channel. So Pia Suter, a center who could maybe slide into the second line there with Fabry and with Zadina. So that would be an intriguing line to follow. So his deal is 2 years at $3.25 million. And this past season, his first season in the NHL, 55 games played, had 14 goals, 13 assists for the Chicago Blackhawks. And then he blocked 34 shots and he also forced 27 turnovers. So this guy plays pretty well at both ends of the ice. For the Florida Panthers, they've made a ton of moves as well. One that slips under the radar to me is the extension of Anthony Duclair. It's a 3-year deal worth $3 million annually. He's 25 years old. He's coming into his prime here. And I hope that this means he gets to actually stick with a franchise for a few seasons because I've always liked Duclair. He's a good finisher, especially in transition. He's got really good hands. And he's been playing with some great talent there with the Panthers. I'm not sure if he's going to stay in the top 6 or maybe slide down to like a third line role with somebody like Frank Vetrano. That would be pretty promising. But nonetheless, I like what he offers here. He didn't actually have the goal scoring touch this past season. He only had 10 goals in 43 games. But nonetheless, he added 22 assists. So the guy was offensively very solid for the Panthers, even though I think he was getting like second line treatment there. I don't know if he's going to stay there, but nonetheless, I think that he's a good fit for the Panthers, and they look really good when it comes to the top 6 wingers. For the Montreal Canadiens, I've chosen 27-year-old Cedric Paquette. So Paquette, as you probably know, was on the Lightning when they won the Stanley Cup in 2020. His contract here is just 1 year at $950K, so that's very nice. Now, Montreal, of course, lost Philip Danault in the offseason, and even though Paquette doesn't exactly replace Danault, he can still play center and provide some depth down there as well. So he didn't take faceoffs this past season, but you look at the 2 seasons prior, his percentage was 50.9% in 2019-2020 and 52.6% in 2018-2019. And he's also a very good shot blocker, and he adds a lot of physicality there too, and he can kill penalties. So when he played for the Lightning in the 1920 season, he killed nearly 2 minutes of shorthanded time on ice. So that's pretty good. For the Ottawa Senators, they haven't really done much when it comes to free agency, so I really don't have anybody to talk about. However, I do want to note that when they traded away Yevgeny Dodonov to the Vegas Golden Knights and relieved themselves of that cap, right, $5 million for each of the next 2 years, they did get a 2020 second third-round draft pick. And so they've stockpiled quite a bit there. Excuse me. They have 2 second-rounders and 3 third-rounders in addition to their first-rounders. So if Ottawa wanted to maybe give somebody one of their second-rounders and a third-rounder and maybe get like a late first-rounder out of that, that could be possible. So nice job there from Dorian and relieving some cap space. This team, they're going to be fun to follow this year and in the future ahead, I think. Next up for the Tampa Bay Lightning, I have selected French Army knife that is Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. So the 36-year-old is coming into the Bolts on a 2-year deal, only $1 million annually. This is a guy who just completely kills it in the faceoff circle, 60.9% this past season. He's just great at forcing turnovers and just playing strong defensive hockey. Analytically, he looks really good as well. He has, he's the kind of player that you need when you're going to make a deep playoff run. And you think about Tampa, they lost Yanni Gourde, Blake Coleman, Barclay Goodrow. So Bellemare kind of gets some of that grit and sandpaper back to Tampa Bay. And I think that is very valuable there. And of course, he is very familiar with making deep playoff runs as well. You think about 2018 with the Golden Knights. And lastly, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I've selected center David Kampf. So Kampf spent 4 years in Chicago. I didn't really know much about him because Chicago has mostly been kind of a crappy team in his time there. But nonetheless, at 2 years and $1.5 million annually, this guy has a ton to offer. If you like defensive analytics, this is your guy. So I'm going to name a few stats out there. Last season, defensive zone start percentage, 75.5%. So this guy is playing nearly 3/4 of his zone time in his own zone. 41.4 Corsi for percentage. I think that's really good given that 75.5 DZS. I know, right? This can be quite geeky. On ice save of 915. So goaltenders had a save percentage of 915 when he was on the ice, despite being hemmed in his zone entirely. So I think that's pretty good. This guy is also good in the face-off circle. He forces turnovers. He led all Chicago forwards in penalty kill last year. So I think that this guy is a great under the radar fit. So I think this guy kind of fortifies that depth a little for Toronto's bottom six. You think of players like Simmons and Spezza, right? They're older. You need somebody like Kampf. He's 26 years old, so he's going to block the shots. He's going to do all the nitty-gritty things out there to get the puck out of the zone and, of course, get a line change for somebody like Matthews or Marner. So there you have it, the best low-key move for each Eastern Conference team in the 2021 NHL offseason. But of course, I want to know your feedback on this down in the comments below. Hope you found this video interesting. Make sure you give it a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you Twisters around for more coverage of the NHL through the offseason and beyond. You guys have a good one out there. Once again, I'm Nick, and I'll catch you later. Ciao.